Hey, everybody, and welcome to Hex and Harmony. I am Tegan Luad, and I am here with my friends Michelle and Bayleach. I think this is episode 2?
3.
3. Oh my goodness, we're already at episode 3 for the Hex and Harmony podcast. Thank you all for joining us today. Our main topic for the day are the things we wish we had known when we first started practicing witchcraft. So I was nominated to go first. So I've got a list. I made up a little short list of 5. So I'm trying to think of the first one. And a lot of them kind of piggyback on the others, but the first thing I will say is that your practice doesn't have to match everybody else's practice. Witchcraft is not a cookie cutter type thing. There's so much stuff out there on the internet, in books, in YouTube, and they talk about, they're just all geared towards beginning witches and stuff like that. And you don't have to do what everybody else is doing. And if you feel something different, if the truth is hitting you in some different kind of way, it's okay. You don't have to buy into everything that everybody is telling you. You need to look at everything with a critical eye, measure it with your heart and your brain and your spirit. So that is my number one thing.
I'll go with the next one, and I actually was going to start with something very similar to what you did, Tegan. But I will switch it up and say something else, and I won't necessarily say this is my number one or whatever, because I don't know if I have any of these in any order. I just jotted some things down, and please disregard my dog barking in the background. She had a seizure last night, so she's kind of off today.
Bless her heart.
Poor thing. She is 17 years old now.
Oh, wow.
So she's an old lady, and she's getting on up there having some issues. So I'm just gonna let her do her thing. So yeah, I don't think anybody listening will mind that either.
No, we don't mind.
But one thing that I wish I knew when I got started is that you don't need to go out and buy all these tools. You can use what you have or don't have. You don't have to have anything. I think we mentioned this in the first episode, which you can go back and listen to if you haven't listened to it yet. But you don't really need anything. But if you do want to use tools, use what you have or what you can find easily or make. But if you're into like kitchen witchery kind of stuff, you probably have a crap ton of things already in your pantry, but you don't need anything. And so don't feel like you have to go out and buy all these things to do any kind of ritual or spell or whatever. Use what you have and don't feel like it has to look exactly like somebody else's. And oh my gosh, please don't hold yourself up to somebody else's magic and be like, they have all this and I don't have that, or I can't afford it. Who cares? Do you? Because it's your craft, it's your practice. So use what you have or don't have and don't worry about it.
Yeah, the found things that you find and the things that you make yourself, even if it's just taking something you already have and decorating it, is going to be way more powerful for you.
Exactly.
Than, the $300 Athame that you saw down at the whatever store, the little.
And I can't tell you how much time I wasted thinking that I can't do XYZ thing because I don't have ABC tool. Who cares?
Yeah,
Do it anyway. Find a way to make it work. Because
exactly.
Right.
these tools have not always existed.
Right.
So, whatever.
Honestly, but y'all took both of what I was going to say.
We are so like-minded. That's why we get along. We can do
Well,
Right.
it.
you're a good example, Bailey. I mean, you make your own tarot cards.
Right. Oh, I know it. I wish I had known. Well, not necessarily known, but they tell you that, when you're dealing with tarot, that, you're not real unless somebody gifts you a deck.
Oh my
So,
God.
that, I know.
Yeah.
It caused me some drama for a minute because I didn't know, I had never heard that. So I had been saving up my money to buy a deck because at the time, they were so expensive. So I saved up my money and I got my deck and I'm using my deck and um learning my deck. And then, somebody says, well, you're not real if somebody didn't gift it to you. I'm like, what do you mean? I am real. The Velveteen Rabbit. What are you talking about? So
I heard
was
that
just
too.
annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was just annoying. That people, some people in the craft, they have these holier than thou concepts or ideas about who is and who isn't this, that, and the other. When like both of you already said, it's about you and what you resonate with and what you choose to do. It's like definitely with Michelle, the tools thing, running around trying to find the athame that's, double-sided and it's got a solid shank and the this and the that and the other. And then people make money off of it because, you look in certain places, those things are extremely expensive. So,
Mm-hmm. They have some beautiful stuff out there, but dear Lord.
They do. Right.
Paying for it is a whole other story.
Right.
That is the truth.
Yeah. So just people telling you who or what you can be or cannot be based on their own perspectives.
Yeah. And this isn't on my list, but I feel like I need to say it anyway. The reverse of that is just because you've decided to be a witch, don't go around judging other people who go around saying that they're witches.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's just I remember, this was so many years ago. I mean, oh God, 30 years ago. And I was in some kind of chat room on the internet. I was talking to people and I don't remember all the stuff that was going on, but I said something about, I don't want to actually, I don't want to curse people. I might want to defend
Right.
myself, but I don't want to go out
Right.
spreading all that negativity. And then somebody posted in response to me, oh, Tegan, you're not real. You're just a fluffy bunny.
Oh my
And
gosh.
needless to say, well, it pissed me off, but it also hurt
Right.
my feelings because I was
Right.
just beginning to put myself out there as,
Mhm.
into, an internet chat room isn't really, I mean, it's still on the internet in a chat room and anonymous and stuff, but putting myself out there into the world to other people, even though they were on the internet. And her saying that, I mean, it pissed me off and it hurt my feelings and it made me think, wait, am I really not, is there something
Right.
wrong
Right.
with the way I think and the way I practice as far as witchcraft is? So, and it's not true. It wasn't true. And having ethics is certainly nothing to be ashamed of. And just, anyway, that's my one big thing is do not get all ahead of yourself thinking that you are the end all and be all to other
Right.
people.
Right.
That you have a right to say anything about their practice.
Don't gatekeep witchcraft and don't let others gatekeep it for you because not everybody practices the same way. And it goes back to what you said at the beginning that your practice is your practice, and it doesn't have to look like everybody else's. And I can't tell you the number of times that people have told me that you can't be religious and be a witch. Yes, you can. Or
Right.
to say that if you're not practicing Wicca, that you're not a witch. That's only one form of witchcraft. That's not the end all and be all. Not everybody who is a witch practices the threefold law. That's a Wicca thing, I think. I'm not Wiccan,
Yeah.
so I don't know that for a fact. I could be wrong. I'm not sitting here saying I know everything because I don't, obviously.
Right. Right.
But I do know that not all witches practice the threefold law. So there you go.
Yes,
You just
that
don't
that
say.
was actually the first thing I wrote down on my little list. If you guys can see it, is number one. Witchcraft is not Wicca, and
Yes.
Right.
Wicca is not synonymous. I mean, the two words don't replace each other. Wicca is one branch of a religion. It is not the whole of witchcraft,
Right.
because I remember when I was first starting out, I went and bought Raymond Buckland's Big Blue Book. Do you guys know what that? It's like this old, I don't know when, from the 70s, I guess. I don't know when it was published, but it's this big, huge blue book, and it's really thick, and it's like Raymond Buckland's complete guide to witchcraft. And I remember reading it and studying it, but Raymond Buckland was Wiccan, and everything in his book is from a Wiccan perspective.
Right.
That's all fine and everything, but maybe name your book The Big Book of Wicca, not The Big Book of
Yeah,
Right.
Witchcraft, or whatever.
exactly, because it's very misleading for people. It's very difficult to learn when you're on your own and you're solitary, especially way, way, way back, then. That kind of information was hard to come by. So when I found this huge book, I was like, yes, thank you. And,
Right.
I did get a lot from it. I mean, there are principles in there that are good, but you have to remember that it's coming from a Wiccan, or I don't know, Alexandrian, which is another part of Wicca, whatever. Viewpoint, and that is not, there is no such thing as gospel in
Right.
witchcraft. Nothing is set in stone, and the number one rule for everybody. So that was my number one thing that I wrote down. First thing I wrote down.
Then also along with that, they have some of those who claim to be, in the upper echelons, they try and make it seem like, just because, you're just starting out, that, you're not as good or as powerful or as knowledgeable or whatever, just because they may have been in it longer than you, when I don't think that really matters. It's about your intent. It's about your connection. It's about how you feel about it. Just because, just like, you've got 95-year-old people who have no common sense. But you've got 5-year-olds, who know enough, to not walk across the street in front of cars. So, it's all relative. If you have it, if you're connected with it, then you're just as much of a witch as anybody else. Nobody should be able to attempt to tell you otherwise.
One thing that's on my list is that psychological work on yourself, like self-development stuff and shadow work, is necessary to your practice for growth, but it's not sexy and it's not glamorous, and there's so much spiritual bypassing in the witch community that everybody's like, oh, I'm doing shadow work, and it's so glamorous and it's so pretty and it's so sexy. No,
Not if,
no, it ain't.
the real deal is not.
If it is sexy, it ain't shadow work. I'm going to tell you that right now.
If it's sexy, you're not doing it right.
Exactly.
Right.
it's painful.
Yes.
Right.
It hurts. I mean, it might not be physically painful, but emotionally and
Right.
mentally and spiritually, that hurts.
Right.
It
Oh
And
does.
yeah.
I mean, it really is necessary to do, but you don't have to be doing it constantly kind of thing either. So,
Right.
and that brings me to another one of my things is that, it's okay to take breaks in any part of your practice. And if you sometimes feel like you're a lazy witch, that's okay. You don't have to all the time be doing all the things. And if you don't know when the next moon phase is, that's fine. Nobody really cares. And
Right.
if your way of like, you know, when the next full moon is and you just want to, you know, note it by knowing when it is and not doing a ritual or whatever, that's fine. Because if you're constantly feeling like your practice has to be a performance, then it's going to become a burden and you're going to burn
Right.
out on it. So do the necessary work, whatever the necessary work is at the moment, but know that also there's times when the necessary work means not doing anything because you need a break, you need to rest.
Right.
That is
Right.
very
Gotta
wise.
do that. Yep.
I only have two left, and they're kind of the same. Well, they're kind of, one is just an expansion of the other. But one thing I wish I knew when I first started, I wish somebody would have sat me down and made me understand that witchcraft is not pretending. And I'm not saying,
Right.
I mean, I never thought that I never thought witchcraft was pretend or play acting. So much of it though is done with visualization and all this stuff in your head that I don't think when I first started, I don't think I fully realized how real the things I was doing was and how
Mm-hmm.
much it would transform me and my life and my vision, I guess, of life. I don't know how to explain it, but, energy is real. I mean, it's a physical thing. It's
Right.
vibrations and
Mm-hmm.
frequencies that are in the universe. And it feels like you're pretending. It feels like you're visualizing the energy flowing from your hands or wherever, whatever you're doing. But it's not pretend. It's not, it's not just a visualization that you're imagining this blue light shooting out of your wand or whatever. It really is directing real energy. And the first time you actually feel it physically rather than just visualizing it mentally
Mm-hmm.
is extremely profound, and it will extremely change you.
And I'm
And
really glad you said that and brought that up because I can't tell you how much I struggled at the beginning with that, thinking, well, I'm not doing something right because something's not literally physically happening. And
Right.
all that I'm doing is seeing things in my mind and imagining things. But imagination is real. Just because
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
somebody uses the word imagination doesn't mean that it's fake or that it's just pretend stuff because like you said, it's very real. And when I grasped that concept, my practice changed a
yes,
lot
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Yeah.
because I allowed myself to actually imagine more, to visualize more. I mean, so many things changed, and I didn't.
mhm.
That wasn't one of the things on my list, so I'm glad you brought that up.
I mean, I think it's a big one because a lot of people, I mean, especially just beginning, it takes time to build up your psychic muscles and
Right.
your, um, affinity or whatever with energy and to actually feel it. But you can. I mean, one of the episodes on my other podcast, Synapse and Shadow, I think the last one I did was on developing your psychic muscles. And it takes time, but one day it will happen and you'll say, ooh, I do notice a shift in energy. I can physically feel it, either on my skin or here in my chest area. I can feel a shift in this energy, and I can feel the energy in the palms of my hands. And then you realize that you're actually doing real work. And you never were, pretending. You were always manipulating those energies. You just couldn't feel it. And the day you do, you realize, oh, okay. So that's it. My last one, I'll say it real quick because it's kind of the same thing, but it's if you don't have to work with deity at all in your practice in witchcraft. It doesn't have to be connected to, religion and gods and goddesses. But if you do work with them, be careful, because those energies are big and they will transform your life. I mean, like I said, when I was first starting out, I never thought I was pretending. I always believed everything was real. But, okay, I have to dedicate myself to a goddess. And so a goddess I felt was calling to me, wanting me to be her whatever disciple, whatever you want to call it, whenever you dedicate yourself to a goddess. So I did this whole ceremony and dedicated myself to Astarte, which is not a goddess I had ever really even heard of before. She came to me and told me who she was. And so I did it. And be careful, because once you do, they will transform your life. And the first thing they do is get rid of the bad stuff so that you can build on the new stuff. And some of that bad stuff you may not realize was bad. I mean, it was bad, it was, not beneficial for me in my life, but I wasn't ready to let go of that stuff yet. I was just starting out and I didn't know myself well enough, but she sure did come in there and start ripping shit up. I'm glad for it now, but just be careful.
Right.
And know that things are real. The shit gets real. I ain't joking.
Right.
I have one more that I want to talk about, and that is that magic works, but it's not an instantaneous fix. You will get what you do a working for, but it may be a whole lot longer before it works than what you want or what you think. And just because you don't get something in a specified time frame doesn't mean that the magic didn't work.
Yeah. Right. And it doesn't always work the way you wanted it to work.
Yeah, that's true. You may have to keep doing a spell or a ritual or whatever you call it or whatever, but that doesn't mean that it didn't work the first time or whatever. And you're never going to have a time where you do like a money spell or whatever and $1 million instantly falls in your lap. That's not how this works.
Right.
Even, TV and books make it seem that way. That's not reality. So, yes, you can do a magical working for abundance, for money, and you will get it. But it's not going to be immediate, instantaneous, and it may be in a way that you don't expect, and it may take a long time or it may take a short time, but it's going to happen if you keep doing it. If you do it one time and think that it didn't work, and so you stop doing it, then you're right, it didn't work. But that's not because the magic wasn't real. That's because you stopped doing the work.
Right.
Yes.
So you have to keep at it. You have to keep doing the work until you get what you want. But you can literally get what you want if you're willing to work for it.
I was gonna say that like brings up a lesson that I was trying to explain to a friend of mine not too long ago. Is there's a thing called sphere of influence, and when you're doing a spell, you need to consider your own sphere of influence. And what that means is if you really don't do magic very much, you just, tinker around with it every now and then, you haven't built up your muscles, your magic muscles, your spirit and psychic muscles, your sphere of influence isn't going to be as large as someone who trains and practices all the time. So if just someone who decides, oh, I'm going to do a spell because I want that house that I saw on realtor.com and it only costs $1.4 million and I'm a witch, so I'm going to get it. And you do the spell for the specific house that you see on realtor.com for $1.4 million and you work as a fry cook at McDonald's, you're not being realistic. I mean, it's like Michelle said, whatever spell you do will come to you. You're probably not going to get the house for $1.4 million. I mean, no one is going to die and leave it to you in their will, at least not for like 50 years from now. You need to look at what you can influence. You want to start smaller now, if you've been practicing witchcraft for 20 years and you have built up those muscles and by then you've learned that you can't just say, I want this specific house for $1.4 million. You can't do that kind of spell. By then you've learned that you have to do the spell for a home that you love, that has all the things that $1.4 million house had, and be realistic about it. Because I could tonight, I could get off this computer and go do a spell to make Jason Momoa fall madly in love with me. But it's not gonna
girl,
happen.
I'm doing that spell.
I know how many people have already done that spell and it did not work. And it's not gonna work. I mean, I cannot do a spell today to make Jason Momoa walk up my driveway and knock on the door and fall madly in love with me. It's not gonna happen. So know your sphere of influence.
So yes, when I say you can get whatever you want, I mean, you have to be realistic about it. Specifics, no, not necessarily, but generalities. You can do a spell for a new home. You can do a spell for a new job, for someone to love you, whatever. But when you get specific with it, you might get what you want. You might not, depending on what it is you want and all that jazz that goes along with that. But like you said, if you're a fry cook at McDonald's, you're probably not going to get that $1.4 million house on realtor.com, no matter how much you do a spell for it. You might one day get it.
Exactly. Right.
But it's
50 years from now, you might get it.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of work because you got to do a lot in between here, now, and there, then, to work up to that, to work up your magic muscles, as you said, to manifest the changes that it takes. Because even if you could do a spell and get that $1.4 million house right now, your mindset isn't in a place where you're going to keep it, because the who you are as you are now as a fry cook at McDonald's. Not that there's anything wrong with being a fry cook at McDonald's, because there's nothing wrong with that. That's not a bad thing. But the mindset that goes along with that is not the mindset of a $1.4 million house. Neither is good, neither is bad. They're just two different things. And if you are one, you can become the other, but it takes change to get there. You can change from being a $1.4 million house mindset into a McDonald's fry cook mindset.
Right.
That happens. It happens a lot. So
Right.
please don't think that we're saying that one is better than the other.
No, it's just
saying
that a fry cook can't pay $500,000 a month mortgage payments.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just different where you're at, but you can get to the point of being where you can manifest a $1.4 million house. But that takes time, that takes change, and as you work in your magic muscles. So, yes.
Exactly. I mean, you could go ahead and do the spell for the $1 million house, but once you've done that, then you need to do a spell for a better paying job, for more income, whether it's, more income will come to me, and build yourself up and then say, okay, now I want, whatever. I know a guy who did a spell and for, prosperity and money. And so he wrote out a check to himself for like $250,000, $250,000. He just wrote the check out to himself during the spell and infused that check with a whole lot of magnetic energy for money. And he set the check aside and he continued working on, himself and his magical work, and his sphere of influence grew. And it took like 5 years, but he cashed that check to himself and he got his $250, but he did it understanding that he wasn't, somebody wasn't going to just walk up and put $250,000 in his bank account because he did a spell. He knew that he had to put the work into it to get what he wanted. For him, it took like 5 years, but he got promoted at work. He did some stuff, I guess, in the stock market. I don't know, whatever, but he increased his wealth through his own hard work, his own hard, mundane, literal, physical work and magical work until he had built up enough money that he could go in there and cash that check and get 250 grand cash.
And that is exactly what I meant with you can't do a spell and it not work immediately and then you stop and then you think it's because the magic didn't work. No, it's because you stopped and you didn't put in the work that goes along with it. So, yeah, that's how that works.
Yep.
100%.
So I guess that brings us to the end of episode 3. And then we will be back again in approximately 2 weeks with the next episode. I say approximate because, the moon doesn't always follow the 2-week thing. It's approximately, generally speaking,
right,
13 to 15 days. So.
Right.
Bye, y'all.
We will see y'all next time.
Right. Bye.